Welcome back, friends. In this video, we are going to be comparing some of the best movies for Ana de Armas.
Can I help?
No.
No?
No.
All right.
And those of Alexandra Daddario. So if you like this video, let me know in the comment section. Starting with Alexandra Daddario at number 8 in the Layover, 2017.
Well, this is you guys.
This movie is about two best friends, Meg and Kate from first grade, who at a point in time when things were not going their way, decided to take a vacation to Florida. On the plane, they met with a guy called Ryan who sat between them going to attend a wedding in Florida, and all of a sudden they all started fighting for his attention, wanting to prove to each other that they were the better test. Unfortunately, there was a hurricane, so the plane first stopped at St. Louis. Surprisingly, they realized that the guy they were competing for was at the same hotel as theirs, and they picked up from where they had stopped off on the plane. Anyway, after all of them throwing themselves onto the guy, he used them both and left them fighting each other because of jealousy, and later they found out that the wedding he was going to was his own. Because of what he had done to them, they went to ruin his wedding to stop a woman from marrying a guy of his nature. But then they found out when they got to the wedding that the woman Ryan was getting married to was very mean and the controlling type. They changed their minds after he begged them to not ruin his wedding, since it was entirely their fault of competing for him, like it was some sort of a game to them, and that he had never done anything of the sort from first year at college. When he met his wife, they realized he was right anyway about their game. They settled their differences, though they were not going to be staying together anymore. But guess what? The apartments they rented were next to each other. Meg was in 202, and Kate was in 203, so that they can easily access each other. As much as this movie was fun, it scored 0% on Rotten Tomatoes and 21% from the audience. At number 7 is Alexandra Daddario in Texas Chainsaw, 2013. In this film, Alexandra Daddario as Heather Miller was born in a family of the Sawyers, who had a reputation of butchering others in cold blood, and because of this, by the time Heather was just a baby, the community did mob justice on the Sawyers by killing most of them and burning down their entire house. It was during this chaos that a couple, Gavin Miller and his wife Arlene Miller, who were not able to have children of their own, took Heather Miller and raised her as their child. Years later, after Heather Miller had turned into a woman, she found out that all along she was a Sawyer after the death of her grandmother Verna Sawyer, who left everything of hers to Heather Miller, though in the late Verna's trust, Heather Miller was never to sell anything left to her. Heather Miller was so excited that she inherited a mansion. She and her friends went to it immediately, but to her disappointment, there was a psycho left in the house, who butchered all her friends in cold blood the night they got there, and she narrowly escaped him. This horror thriller got a Rotten Tomato score of 19% and 40% from the audience. At number 6 is Ghosted, 2023, with Ana de Armas. In this action-adventure comedy, Ana as Sadie Rhodes is a CIA operative on vacation after one of her workmates she was sort of close to died in action. One day as she went to the nearby market to do some shopping, she happened to meet this guy called Cole Turner to sell her flowers that she immediately got a thing with after a small argument regarding flowers. From the market, Turner asked her out for a cup of coffee, and she said yes. From here, what happened next was magic, and it got Turner to think that she was the one, especially since he was from having a very bad breakup, so he told his family about it. To his disappointment, he was ghosted for the next days, but the advantage he had was that during the times he was with her, he happened to put his inhaler in her bag. The time they were competing to see who would get to the top of the ladders first, which had a trucker on it for easy discovery, just in case it got lost. When he traced it, it was in London, and shockingly, when he got to London to surprise her, he was immediately abducted by the bad men who thought he was the taxi man. It was Sadie who rescued him from them because she was the taxi man. But because a bounty was put on the taxi man, Hunter ended up being abducted by various hitmen, who would also kill each other, to get the price on the bounty which Sadie used to her advantage. By the time the bad guys realized that all along the taxi man was the woman who Tunner was with always, it was too late. She took them down with Tunner alongside her as the boyfriend. This was after he accepted her for who she was, and after the mission, he introduced her to his parents. This movie had a Rotten Tomato score of 25% and 55% from the audience. Coming up at number 5 is also a movie with Ana de Armas called Deep Water, 2022.
Why are you the only man who wants to stay with me?
In this film, Anna acts as Melinda, the wife of a calm but dangerous guy called Vic who is retired and got his money from tech innovation that he sold to the government of the United States so that it could be used in its defense system. She would do all sorts of annoying things a wife can do to a man, like cheating in his presence, disrespecting him, and so on, because she knew how much he loved her. So she used it to her advantage. But what she didn't know was that all men have breaking points, except for when they don't have what to lose. And this was the same thing that happened with Vic. The advantage Vic had was that he had sympathy from the community, because they knew him as a calm guy and an adorable father, yet the things his wife used to do to him, since she always did most of them in public, were alarming, and in fact most of them wondered why he never divorced her. So because of this and the fact that he was a very smart guy who did everything based on calculations, he developed a habit of killing his wife's young lovers in silence, leaving no trace to suspect anything, without anyone knowing until when she decided it was time to settle down in marriage with him and their daughter, after she somehow got a clue, when she found a wallet for one of her lovers in their house. This film has got a Rotten Tomato rating of 35% and 24% from the audience. At number 4 is again Ana de Armas in a movie called Blonde 2022.
Is this what I think it is?
Yes.
In this film, Anna acts as the legendary female icon Marilyn Monroe, depicting her life from when she was little. By the time Marilyn was born, her parents were very poor to the extent that they could not afford to buy her a bed and instead used a wardrobe as her crib. But as time went on, her father became a big Hollywood figure and left her mother. 6 years later, the mother started hating the child, thinking she was the cause of her husband's runaway, since he didn't want her from the beginning. The hate grew too much each day that went on to the extent that the mother tried to drown Marilyn, thinking she was getting her out of the misery they were in, and because of this, the mother was put in a mental hospital for the rest of her life, and Marilyn grew up in foster homes. Marilyn always wondered why her father left, and because she knew he was a big figure in Hollywood, she made it her mission at any cost to become part of it. She was used by men in ways you can't imagine, but kept going to find her father. Good enough, she was beautiful and talented. She first landed on gigs for magazine models for quite some time, until when she started getting acting gigs that involved misery, which she performed very well, since she grew up around this kind of life, as she would always imagine the pain she went through without her father and that of her mother's. Time reached, she started making it big, but the problem was, for her talent, she was always underpaid, considering what male actors were. For example, she one day found out that she was going to be the lead act and paid $5,000, while her male counterpart was going to be paid $100,000. This was a very big challenge that actresses of this Hollywood phase faced. The other challenge she had in her life was that she always wanted to be a mother, but always something came up. The first time was because she was on top with lots of acting and modeling gigs, so having a baby was a no-no, because she had signed contracts, and she was forced to terminate what she was carrying during this time. The time she had chose to get off acting until she gave birth, she got an accident that claimed her baby. Marriage was another disturbing thing on her side, despite how she always wanted to try and make it work because of her acting roles. But the main factor that disturbed her through her life, even when she was very successful, was that fact that she didn't know why her father left her, and she kept hoping to find him one day. In fact, for most times, she would confuse her husbands for her daddy, until one day when she ended her own life with an overdose of sleeping pills at the age of 36. This film has a Rotten Tomato score of 42% and 34% from the audience. Coming in at number 3 is Alexandra Daddario in When We First Met 2018.
This is gonna be one of the best nights of your life.
I can deal with best night of my life.
And it's starting right now.
In this film, Alexandra acts as Avery. She and a guy called Noah met on Halloween in 2014, and from then, he thought she was the one, the woman who would one day be his wife. But destiny proved him wrong when she got engaged to a guy called Ethan. At the engagement party, Noah decided to get himself drunk as much as he could, and later Avery asked her best friend Carrie to give him a lift back to his place, since she was also leaving. Noah stopped at the bar where he worked as a piano guy to get more drinks, and later on ended up in a photo booth that reminded him of the first night he met with Avery. Surprisingly, when he made a wish to travel back in time to fix the wrong steps he had done, so that he could end up with Avery before he took the photo, this booth drove him 3 years back in time on the day he met Avery. For those of you who have watched time travel movies, I'm guessing you know that if you tamper with anything that was supposed to happen, you cause anomalies. This was the same thing that happened to him every time he moved back in time. Until when he learned that no matter what he did, Avery was always going to end up with Ethan. But rather, destiny was directing him to Carrie all along. He accepted it because she was also an amazing person, and the two ended up together happily ever after. This fantasy comedy drama has a Rotten Tomato score of 43% and 58% from the audience. At number 2 is Ana de Armas in the Greyman, 2022. In this action thriller, Ana acts as Donnie Miranda, a CIA operative who one night on a mission gets caught up in some chaos after Sierra 6 was sent to end Sierra 4. Let me first get this out of the way. In the early 2000s, a CIA agent called Fitzroy started the Sierra program from the ground, whereby he would go through files of criminals and get those with special abilities like 6 and give them a chance to be free on a condition they worked for the CIA for life by helping them get rid of the bad guys. Years later, Fitzroy was retired with Carmichael in charge, who wanted to completely get rid of this Sierra program. Because for starters, they had no records, meaning they could do anything they wanted, which was what Sierra 4 did, gathering all the dirty doings of Carmichael and wanting to sell the information to the highest buyer. Carmichael sent in Sierra 6 to terminate one of his own. But what he didn't see coming was that the two interacting together, even after a very bitter fight. Sierra 4 gave Sierra 6 the flash drive containing Carmichael's dirty files before his last breath, and 6 got curious to know if he was telling the truth. Carmichael made 6 the next target, and Kinda wanted to put the blame on Donnie Miranda. So to clear her name, Miranda first abducted 6 when she got the chance, and later, when she realized that Carmichael was the dirty guy, she teamed up with 6 to take down Lloyd Hansen, a machinery that Carmichael had hired to take down 6, and to also rescue Fitzroy's niece, that Lloyd Hansen, that abducted as leverage on 6, since the two had a small attachment that happened the time 6 was sent in to babysit her after her peacemaker was put in her chest due to her failing heart. This happened after one of the people in Washington who wanted to destroy Fitzroy exposed his home location. This film has a Rotten score of 44% and 90% from the audience. At number 1 is Alexandra Daddario in Lost Girls and Love Hotels, 2020.
So, why Japan?
Leave me alone.
In this film, Alexandra acts as Margaret, a young girl who, for whatever reason, wants to be as far as possible away from home. So she gets a job in Japan as an English interpreter in a school training air hostesses. But the problem she has is that she is a drunk. So she most times reported late at work until one day she was replaced. She one day met with this guy called Kazu, who she madly fell in love with before she found out that he was gangster, and when he broke up with her, she chose to completely destroy her life, doing things you can't imagine, until one day when Kazu gave her a reason to go back home and not waste her life, after he rescued her from a man who was about to abuse her, though she went with him willingly. This film has a Rotten Tomato score of 50% and 35% from the audience. Anyways, let us know your best movie on the list, and remember to subscribe if you are not.